friends, it's Martin. I'm in the studio today and I'm gonna make a recipe that a friend of mine, Carrie Haney, over at Night Moves Bread in Biddeford, Maine, shared with me. This is Carrie's Anadama bread, or her take on Anadama. Some of us know Anadama as a pan bread with molasses, whole wheat, and also corn or cornmeal. Carrie's take on it is including those ingredients, but she uses sourdough pre-ferment. It has a cornmeal crust. It's an artisan hearth-baked loaf, so it's nice and crusty. So let's jump into it. Carrie Haney's Anadama bread. Okay, so let's talk through Carrie Haney's Anadama bread. So Carrie is a baker who has a bakery over in Biddeford, Maine on the coast. And when I think of bakers out there that are really pushing the envelope on creativity and also sort of sourcing focused baking, Carrie is at the top of my mind. She's really one of the most creative bakers that I can think of. Even if you just go to the website, it's Night Moves Bakery, just go and see what they have on menu, and I think you're going to find great inspiration by just reading about the products that she has. So, Night Moves Bakery over in Biddeford, Maine, and this is Carrie's Anadama bread. So, anytime that I am working with a formula, I like to have it in Excel. It's just kind of my place of comfort, and it allows me to see what is going on in a formula. So, this column right here is the total formula column, and basically what it has are the ingredient components in Baker's Math. So you can see that in this version I'm using 60% all-purpose, 40 whole wheat at 82% hydration. When Carrie makes this bread, and maybe one thing I should say before we go too much further is that this is an adaptation. It's not exactly the way that Carrie makes it. I have different flours to work with than what she's using. She is working with an Artifacts mixer. I'm mixing by hand. She has a nice big, masonry oven, and I'm working in a home oven. So there are some adaptations along the way, and what I've tried to do is honor the spirit of it while also needing to change some things. Okay, so when Carrie makes the bread, she's using sifted whole wheat flour. Sometimes we call it bolted flour or high extraction flour. And in order to approximate that flour, I'm using a blend of all-purpose and whole wheat. I've got 82% water, 2.4% salt, a little bit of sourdough culture, molasses, hominy, toasted grits, and then water for the grits. When Carrie makes this bread, she takes feed corn and she nixtamalizes it. She treats it with lime and then cooks it. And that's a great way to bring out a lot of flavor. And this is my sort of like home baker hack for those for that corn aspect of the formula. Okay, so rather than nixtamalizing, I'm using a combination of hominy and toasted grits, which you saw in the video. So in the second column here, you'll see it says stiff levain. This is the pre-ferment, and of all of the flour in the recipe, I'm using 15% in the pre-ferment. So 15%. It's a little bit more than what Carrie uses, but I have found that having a little bit more pre-ferment when you're working at home is good. And so I have that in a stiff levain, and then this is the grit soaker. And then when we go to actually mix, that's what's happening over here. So in the bowl, after we subtract out the flours for the levain, we'll have this, flour, water, salt, and then we'll add the molasses and hominy. And the soaker and the levain come in down here for a total of 1.8 kilos or 1,800 grams. And you can see up here on the left that I'm doing 2 loaves at 900 grams, which gives me a batch size of 1,800 grams or 1.8 kilos. Okay, so how do we make the bread? I set my pre-ferment, I let it ripen overnight or 8 to 10 hours roughly, and I also toast the grits and add the water and stir to combine as you saw in the video, and then I chop the hominy. And then I begin the autolyse. I mix flours, water, and levain to combine and rest it for 40 to 60 minutes. You could extend that if you want. It's basically just a period where the flour hydrates, and by using that period, you get better strength when you go to actually mix. There are some other reasons there too. A true autolyse probably shouldn't contain the levain, but I find that it's easier when you're mixing by hand to get the levain broken up in the water. So you do the autolyse, and then you go to the mix. So you add the salt and the molasses to your autolyse dough and mix by hand for 3 to 5 minutes. You'll see me when I mix, when I'm making a wet dough like this, you'll see me sort of like almost whip the dough a little bit. I'm incorporating some air. It's a good technique. And then at the end of mix, I want to hit about 78 to 80 degrees. It's cold here, we're in Vermont, and I had to use water that was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in order to get the dough temperature up into this range where it will ferment at a good rate. It's really important to guide fermentation. Water temperature is really the best way to do it. Depending on the season and where you are, you might give 3 hours or 4 hours of total bulk fermentation. I gave 4, and I think I did 3 folds. I say 3 to 4. As you proceed during bulk and as you fold, you're going to get a sense of how much strength is in the dough, and you're going to make a decision to do all 4 of those folds or maybe skip the one that's at 90 minutes. After 3 to 4 hours, you should have a dough that is doubled in size, maybe not quite that, somewhere around there. Should feel active. Divide and pre-shape, rest for 15 minutes. On the video, you'll notice that I give a very gentle pre-shape. I also give a very gentle final shape. The dough just didn't feel like it needed that much, and if I'm heavy-handed with it, I end up pushing out a lot of the structure, a lot of the final structure. If I really shape tightly, I can negatively impact the final structure. So you'll see me, I'm shaping quite gently. I'm basically just rolling it up. I add a cornmeal crust. So I roll the shaped loaf across a towel which is moist, and then through some cornmeal, and I place it seam side up in a banneton. You could let those proof on the floor and then bake them, or you could chill them overnight for 12 to 16 hours before baking. That's what I did in the video. I gave them a nice long cold rise in the fridge, and then I brought them out. And I think that when I brought them out on day 2, they felt like they were a little bit young, so I let them sit at room temp for maybe half an hour or 45, 60 minutes, somewhere in there, until they felt a little bit puffy. And then they went into a 500-degree oven for about 20 minutes with steam, and then I turned it down for additional 20 to 25. You really want to give a nice, robust bake. It helps to set the crust, it helps to draw some of the water out, and the color just looks prettier. So that is Carrie Haney, Anadama from over at Night Moves Bakery in Biddeford, Maine. I hope that you enjoyed the video and look for more content done in the same fashion coming soon. Be well.